Hey guys, it's Tom Box. Welcome to MST.TV. Now, with the release of Dual Overload, I can say Lunalights got a couple of extra toys to play with, and the extra deck got a little bit tighter. And we already know that Lunalight has this infinite negate combo, which I will demonstrate to you step by step, kind of explaining each step along the way, so that you guys can perform it flawlessly at whichever event that you're going to see. Luckily, maybe it's a blessing that we don't have to deal with this deck, but this is what we are currently missing out. And since it's such a powerful deck, I'm going to explain the strengths, the weaknesses, how to counter the deck profile of my current build, and you guys can retune it to yourselves. And also, we'll go through two combos in case the Apex Avian stuff does get banned. I mean, let's be honest here, Infinite Negate seems a little bit unfair. Anyways, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe, ding notification bell to stay up to date with the latest and greatest from MST.TV, and I'm talking to you right now. Thank you for subscribing. Let's go into this. Kicking off with the deck profile, I'll be showcasing you guys the current build I have. Of course, use this as a foundation to your builds and alter to your liking if you want to increase the consistency and add some additional text. That's all up to you. Now, I'm going to showcase a second, I guess a swap rather, of several cards if the Apex Avian package does get hit by the ban. Let's be honest here. That particular combo isn't exactly very fair. But if they do leave it in, well, you can leave it in. But if they don't, well, we can switch to a Time Thief variant, and I'll showcase a couple of quick cards you can switch, and it will be functional right after that. Let's kick it off with the main deck monsters. Let's just quickly go over the Lunalight package. Of course, 3 Kaleido Chick, because it has a cost to send a monster into the graveyard to copy the name, which is very important because it's a cost, so you can always activate it even if it is negated. So one of your key bread, and here's your butter, of course, Lunalight Tiger. Once per turn, special summon cards from your graveyard onto the field. They have to be a Lunalight monster. Their effects are negated. Of course, that is a quote-unquote soft once per turn, so bouncing it back to your hand often gives you additional summons, and it acts as a 1-card 3 summon. Double Yellow Martin and 1 Emerald Bird for the additional draw or additional summon, and Yellow Martin is the card that bounces back your Lunalight Tiger so that you can special summon itself out and reuse the Tiger. So that's the main functionality of the initial card that you would throw into the graveyard. Okay, now let's get into something a little bit different, starting with the Wing Beast package. Wing Beast package, we have Raid Raptor Singing Lanius, we have Blackwing Zephyros the Elite summoned out from Raid Raptor Wystrix, we have Bora the Spear, and 1 Crack of the Dawn, Chris. Because in case you draw into this, if you are unable to add additional Wing Beast monsters from your deck to your hand, you will not be able to prog Wystrix to add the card that summons out Cyber Dragon Infinity, which is why I'm running an extra package. And having both of these gives you quick access to a rank 4. And yeah, that's how it is. So if you open with 2 Chris's, it doesn't really work out. I get that this one is larger. Perhaps you want to see it more. And this one's immune to 1 destruction, I believe. But Zephyros is still going to summon many times, so that's going to be really awesome. 1 Armageddon Knight in case you don't get your Kaleido Chick, and this can still mill a Yellow Martin into the graveyard and set up to some level your board. It is one of the cards that are also susceptible to Ash. Then we have our Driver driving in with our double Gamma. This is probably one of the best hand traps you have. You don't really have to run it, but I think it's one of the safer choices. And if you run Cypherine Lord Lambda with the Time Thief package, this is the card that you can actually search to your hand. And finishing off the main deck monsters, we have Apex Avian, and of course his little brother Thunderbird. This is best boy because it gives you the infinite negate. As long as you have both of these on the field, you'll constantly be able to special summon. Note that although you call it the infinite negate combo, which is more or less true because you have infinite negates, note that this monster is rather weak. It can still be killed by battle. If it almost gets killed by battle, likely you need another level of disruption so that this can stay on the field. And that's where I'm going to leave that. Anyways, moving on to the spell cards. Spell-wise, starting off with our search card Tenki, because most of our monsters are Beast Warrior. You can search out whichever one that you're missing from the Lunalight package. We have Triple Perfume, similar deal because you can banish this card and discard 1 card from your hand and add a Lunalight monster, so you can add either your Kaleido Chick or your Tiger. Triple Call of the Grave in case you get disrupted by hand trap. It sucks to get disrupted by hand trap, so we can minimize that by having Call of the Grave, and it's also a decent set card because it's also graveyard disruption, and I really encourage people to play it now. And 1 monster you want to help you extend in case you need to eat a hand trap, which prevented you from reviving a card. And there's triple popper up to throw away useless cards in your hand. So you can get rid of some of the cards like Lunalight Perfume if you don't have something ready in the graveyard. So you can use the banish base effect and draw cards. You're going to pay a lot of life points using this, and if you do have the money to spend on cards and you already own Magician's Soul, consider Magician's Soul over the Popper Up, because this one costs you even more life points, and the other one gives you a free monster instead. So I'm playing a rather more budget version, double Foolish Burial Goods and the Foolish Burial, because this gives you an additional monster in the graveyard, Yellow Martin access immediately, and Foolish Burial Goods, I think it's just a better version because you can either get a card that can fetch, or you can get a card that summons out from the deck, which would be the Serenade Dance. Now, one rank up magic here. We have one rank up magic Proxy Soul Shave Force. I'm sorry, I don't have the actual card. Never pulled the card. But Soul Shave Force, what it basically does is it takes one of your Raid Raptor Exceeds monster in your graveyard, special summons it, basically a monster reborn, and then immediately, because it is a rank up magic, it will perform some sort of ranking up. You will Exceed summon on top of that a monster that is 2 ranks above your monster that was summoned. Okay, so that's why this is important later on, because Wystrix is able to search up rank up magic. And for our final bit of utility, Mystic Mind, because it forces your opponent to negate, and this card with Utopia Double is amazing. Speaking of Utopia Double or nothing, and just for one fun little tech card for the spells, I'm playing one Cosmic Cyclone because I don't want to lose to Mystic Mind myself, and I like to take out some of the stuff. Like if I'm playing a mirror match, having this as a Saki card set against them is kind of a fun way to answer it. You can use Upstart, you can use whatever you want really, but that's just my choice right now. You guys might be saying you don't even have the life points to pay, and you know what? Legit statement. Tune the deck to however you want. If it was a perfect deck, it would have been a different kind of profile, which would have been a competitive one. This is still a very competitive deck, by the way. And of course, for our one trap, we have one Serenade Dance. You might have noticed I'm not running some of the Time Thief stuff. You can run the Time Thief stuff. You can technically put a Flyback or a Beelzebub ship, or perhaps even like a Winder if you want the additional summon and search the Retrograde. That's up to you. But anyways, let's go on to the extra deck. Starting off with the Link 2s. Link 2s, we have Wystrix, IP Masquerade, and Union Carrier. Wystrix is there to set up the combo. It does require a specific recipe of 2 Dark Wing Beast monster, and it will summon out a level 4 Dark Wing Beast monster from the deck in defense position, but negate its effect. And if your Xyz Raid Raptor monster activates its effect, you have a mandatory effect of setting directly a rank up magic straight from the deck. And yeah, so that is what it does. You can get the Soul Shave Force, so that does require you to play multiple copies of Xyz Raid Raptor monster. So I'm playing double Force Tricks that will be coming up very soon. So this sets up the Cyber Dragon Infinity. Now we will have IP Masquerade. In case your opponent tries to break your Infinite Loot combo using by attacking your Thunderbird, you can use IP Masquerade to disrupt that, go into a Unicorn or something along those lines. Union Carrier is there to boost your attack, but also sets up the Thunderbird right away by targeting your upcoming Link monster by hitting off your Simorgh Bird of Sovereignty. We have also a Nightmare Unicorn and a Boros, so that makes up for most of our Link monsters. This one summons out Apex Avian. Even if you can't establish Infinite Negate combo, in a simplified game state, Apex Avian will still win most of your games, simply because this card during each end phase will summon out a Winged Beast monster from your hand or deck. And if you bounce back your Simorgh, you can still just summon it back onto the field. But on the other hand, if you already have the Thunderbird, you'll just summon the Thunderbird non-stop anyway. Then we have Nightmare Unicorn, it's just Unicorn, spot removal, and then we have Borosword. Try to go for the OTK if you have an opportunity to do so, and if Utopia Double wasn't an option, so if it's an open board, then Borosword does kick in quite nicely. Now into our Xyz monsters, we have double Force Strix and a Cyber Dragon. The reason why this is the package, because the second Force Strix goes into the Cyber Dragon, or rather the first one that got put into the graveyard turns into a Cyber Dragon thanks to Soul Shave Force, which just costs us half our life points, but it is still worth it. But yeah, you get to set up multiple cards. You have lots of cards to add thanks to the double Force Tricks, because you have the Blackwing package. Utopia Double, of course we run Utopia, and Daguerreo's the Timeless. These are a bit of our number monsters. Utopia Double, of course, with Under Mystic Mind, is a very safe punch to the face, perhaps even game your opponent. And Daguerreo's does mainly to unbrick your hand in case you do open an awkward hand where you don't have access to either Kaleido Chick or the Tiger. And we have Abyss Dweller because it is a grave-centric format. Time Thief Redoer because you can pair this off and make it a bit more grindy for your opponent. In any case, this is kind of just utility. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. In fact, you can completely cut the Redoer out in my particular build because there's no real benefit aside from getting an additional monster. Yeah, definitely could be switched off perhaps for an Appaloosa if you can afford one. And there's also Tornado Dragon. It does matter because you can pop your own scale. And if you pop your Tiger, it will activate and summon out a monster onto the field. So that is my extra deck lineup. It is really, really tight, and I really want to just maybe tune it as I play, understand the meta as it adapts. And anyways, let's go into some of the swap cards. What if the Mist Valley Thunderbird, well, gets banned? So if that card gets hit, you have to replace it right away. So if we're going to cut out the Apex Avian play, then we don't need Union Carry or Simorgh in our extra deck. And I really want to fit another Time Thief Redoer if I can find a way, maybe cut the Boral Sword. I really don't want to, but if I have to, I would. Then I would put another Redoer in. Time Thief Perpetua would set up by attaching more material. I'm keeping the Cyber Dragon Infinity in there. Kind of makes the Appaloosa not as useful per se, but Appaloosa is once per chain, so it's still holding like a counter on it as well. So I will switch to Apex Avian, add a Flyback, add a Beazle Ship, maybe even a Winder if I can find more space to cut in, and take away the bird and the Union Carrier for Lambda and Perpetua so I can search my Gammas and Appaloosa so that my IP Masquerena has an additional negation based monster to summon into during my opponent's turn. And Dugaris, I really want to keep Dugaris, but it's either that or I gotta cut like stuff like Dweller, which I don't think is a good idea. And Utopia package is too strong, and I still need double Fortune to go into the Cyber Dragon Infinity. So that's kind of my limitation. That's why I'm going to push for these particular cards for now, but you guys can change it up to your own liking, and perhaps share it down in the comment section if you want to. In terms of their strengths, let's start off with the elephant in the room, or rather the tiger in the room, Lunalight Tiger. This card is easily abusable because it contains a once per turn clause that is per copy. But if a card gets returned back to the hand, it counts as a new copy, so you get to use the effect to revive monsters constantly, and that gives you a surplus of reusable bodies for linking up or ranking up into different monsters. So in terms of the beginning play, you only require a low resource combo of a Kaleido Chick and a Lunalight Tiger. The benefit of these monsters is they're both Beast Warriors, so you can search them out with Fire Formation Tenki, acting as their version of reinforcements of the army. But in addition to that, you have Lunalight Perfume that can also do the same thing, and this deck lacks the whole once per turn thing for most cards. Lunalight Perfume has two effects, one acting as a monster reborn for Lunalight monsters, but special summoning them from the graveyard. But once in the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then discard one card and add one Lunalight monster from your deck to your hand. So you get to fetch another Lunalight. So you have at least 6 cards that are able to fetch you cards. But actually, you have more because Foolish Barrel of Goods also facilitates the exact same effect, which you can put the Lunalight Perfume or the Serenade Dash, which summons out a monster from the deck, setting up the entire combo. Now that's just the opening play. What about the mid game to the late game? This entire deck is able to constantly recycle thanks to Yellow Martin bouncing back the Lunalight Tiger, and this card by itself with the Lunalight Tiger will give you a surplus of 3 monsters per turn, almost giving you a once per turn soul charge. And with any additional monsters you have, you can easily go into Utopia double to punch for game. And if you have additional tigers or additional perfumes or additional ways to special summon out of the graveyard, then you can even go into like a Boral Sword to establish something along those lines when you're trying to push for game. But if you're trying to go first, you can set up the Infinite Negate combo with Thunderbird, or you can play the Time Thief to establish a board that's rather difficult to break because it has a high level of disruption while being able to force your opponent to commit into weak link monsters. And then once you leave them with a weak enough link monster, you can go into the Utopia double and finish them off. And that's part of the reasons why they're so good, and they're also able to eat most hand traps unhindered because of the lack of once per turn for most of these card effects. And since this deck is capable of setting up unbreakable boards, you need to use cards that your opponent can't respond to actually break their boards, like Super Poly, or you need something that's more or less like a summoning requirement. Otherwise, if you have the infinite negate combo on the field, you're just going to negate their card for card, and then they'll just run out of resource simply because you have an Apex Avian with a Thunderbird. This particular part of the combo I don't think will live through a ban list, but even if this part gets axed, then you'll still have the ability to disrupt your opponent with the Time Thief cards up until the point where they have a weak enough monsters, and of course we go back to the Utopia double to punch them for game. So it makes it very difficult for your opponent to commit into a play which they may or may not be able to successfully execute. Now, Lunalights do come with a fair share of weaknesses because they are a grave-centric deck that special summons a lot that relies on the extra deck, and this current variant does also contain searches that can be stunned out, and the combos will be cut short if you can stun out their searches. So in terms of going first, if you want to do some sort of combo prevention, you can flip their monster face down by hitting them with a Book of Moon in their first monster that is put in the extra monster zone. That will cut the entire combo short, and they will no longer have access to their extra deck. So even a Book of Moon or a Book of Eclipse would basically provide you with a turn skip if you have it preset. Another card to stun them out with would be Abyss Dweller. This one's a pretty meta standard to turn off every single card they have in their graveyard, such as a Yellow Marten and DDG, Different Dimension Ground. Preventing your opponent that is playing Lunalights from putting things into their graveyard is key to preventing the combo from actually getting out of control. Now, it only sends monsters to the graveyard, so if they're sending their Link material or their Xyz material, I think they still go into the graveyard since they're not considered as monster as Xyz material. And since they also rely on the extra deck, you can use cards like Artifact Scythe to turn them off. But what if you're going second? You want to break their board, or you want to prevent them from setting up. Breaking the board is going to be difficult because if they set up the infinite Omni Negate, then it's basically GG unless you can establish a really, really high chain link. And even then, it doesn't even guarantee you the win because you have to burn a lot of hand resources to do so. So your best options are cards like Super Poly that are not respondable, or summoning requirements that uses your opponent's monsters that would truly just break their board. So in terms of Super Poly, I don't think it's going to be very effective because the end boards is more or less not super polyable. Like, unless they leave a Union carry on the field, you can only really go into Mud Dragon, and Mud Dragon you would much rather prefer to go into a Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. So Super Poly is more or less a going first type card rather than a going second, and you have to use the set base effect instead to interact with them. Drone Lockbird's pretty effective because there's Lunalight Perfume, there's Fire Formation Tenki, and there's also the Force Tricks that will search. It could just cut the combo short entirely. They might still finish off with something else if they have enough extenders to get access to their extra deck. DD Crow on the Yellow Marten or the Zephyros is essential because it cuts the combo short entirely. Not only do they not bounce back their Lunalight Tiger, but they also lost the Yellow Marten, requiring them to reset their graveyard. I think most people only run 2 copies. Once you banish both copies, the deck will be a lot easier to manage because Yellow Marten is the one card that allows the Tiger to set up multiple summons on the one turn. So it's really, really devastating. Ash Blossom Joy Spring, if you have that, what would you hit? In the new variant and post dual overload, I would say try to hit the Y-Strix. Everything else is a little hard. If you see someone summon Armageddon Knight, hit the Armageddon Knight because Armageddon Knight is one of their worst draws ever. But in terms of what I would rather see is maybe hit the Y-Strix so that you can prevent the Zephyros. And preventing Zephyros stops 3 things. First off, the Zephyros didn't come out, so you traded 1-for-1 on the Zephyros. You prevented the bounce of a Tiger, and then you prevented the activation of the Tiger, and you prevented the Zephyros from summoning itself out. So I think that is about 3 to 4 bodies that you prevented from just ashing the Y-Strix, preventing the Zephyros from being put onto the field. And I think that is a worthy trade for a 1-for potential 3 or 4. And but they will still probably finish with an Omni Negate, especially with an Infinity and an Avian. And what about Nibiru? I think the best timing is on the 7th monster. The problem is they have so many extenders. That's why it feels really awkward to hit them with a Nibiru. But I think you don't really have a choice. Because if you let them get one summon further, then they are likely going to summon out a Nibiru. And here's the thing, because they're not really chaining anything. If they activate their card and you chain Nibiru, Nibiru would tribute everything off, summon Nibiru and token, and then they would summon out their Infinity, and potentially if you left your Nibiru in attack mode, they'll just absorb it. So it's kind of a weird situation, and I guess it's not as bad because you can let them absorb. They still wipe most of their board. The crappy part is if they have a follow-up of any additional special summons, they can still reset up a board, eating the Nibiru and using your token that you gave them. Anyways, that's the rundown of what to hit them. And of course, you can always use Lava Golem and Sphere Mode. Those two cards always work on breaking the board. And I think it's pretty essential, especially when you get to the Infinite Negate board. Okay, so we've gotten to the combo portion of this video. I'm going to be showcasing to you guys one combo, which is the Infinite Negate one, which we're starting off with. But what if the bird gets banned? If the bird gets banned, then I'll show you guys the Time Thief variation of the combo, just so that you guys can readapt and reassess your life choices of why you wanted to play a deck that didn't offer anything for your opponent to play to begin with. Anyways, let's start things off with Lunalight Kaleido-Check. We're going to normal summon out Lunalight Kaleido-Check, activates effect, pay cost to send the Yellow Marten into the graveyard. And with that, we're going to activate the Lunalight Tiger onto the Pendulum Scale. With that effect, we're going to use the Scale effect to summon out the Yellow Marten. And from here, we're going to go ahead and perform an Exceed summon. We're going to overlay them into Force Tricks, and now we're going to detach the Yellow Marten to add a Singing Lanius to hand. These other cards here, they could be extenders, they can be bricks. Who knows what they are? In this case, I'm simplifying it so that you guys don't go in the comments and say, hey, you could have done this with the extra card in your hand. Well, let's make sure that all the cards in your hand are kind of useless. So now you have Singing Lanius now that have been just added from Force Tricks. This has now been used, so we'll put it upside down anyways. And of course, we're going to go ahead and use a Singing Lanius, special summon it because you control an Xyz monster. And now we're going to link them off. We're going to go into our Y-Strix effect, and we get to special summon out our Zephyros the Elite. Hopefully this card does not get ashed along the way, and in any case we have our Zephyros, and we can proceed to bounce back our card with Yellow Marten. By activating Yellow Marten, we can bounce back our Lunalight Tiger by targeting it, and now this is back in our hand. And with that back in our hand, Yellow Marten is now special summoned out onto the field. And here's the part where we can set up our next Force Tricks, and with the second Force Tricks, we're going to detach the Zephyros this time, so Zephyros can bounce back our Lunalight Tiger when the time comes around. And we're going to add to our hand a Chris. Okay. And because an Xyz Ray Raptor monster has activated its effect, Y-Strix will now trigger, and with its trigger, we're going to set a Soul Shade Force straight from the deck. And if it is a quick play spell, if you set a quick play one, you can activate it right away. But this one is not, so it doesn't really apply. And we're going to set it straight onto the field. For the sake of simplifying the combo, we're just going to go ahead and sort of activate this, even though we're going to take a little bit more damage by doing so. You can rearrange it by doing more stuff, but you are more susceptible to Nibiru if you do so. And we're going to activate Soul Shade Force, and we're going to target our Force Tricks in the graveyard, special summon it basically anywhere, and then proceed to rank it up by going into Cyber Dragon Infinity, which is a monster that's 2 ranks higher, which matches the requirement for Soul Shade Force. Now, Soul Shade Force does cost half your life, so at 4,000. So keep in mind that at 4,000 life, you want to maintain your life. You don't want to get hit by one shot through a One Punch Man Grand Maju. And from here, we have our Infinity, Y-Strix, and Force Tricks. We still haven't really summoned back our card because we still have the Tiger. So we're going to activate the Tiger on the scale. And with that, we're going to special summon out our Kaleido-Check back onto the field. Use Kaleido-Check's effect to pay cost for the Emerald Bird. It will not gain the name because its effect is negated technically. And with that, we're going to activate the effect of Zephyros, and we're going to bounce back the Lunalight Tiger back to our hand, and now we have additional bodies available. So we're going to special summon out the Zephyros, the Elite, onto the field, take 400 damage, or 36 now, so just be very careful with your life. But remember, as long as you're not at 0, you're still fine, and we can go ahead and special summon out our Chris, because now we control a Blackwing monster. From here, what I'm going to do is, let's just take all these monsters. We have a Link 2 and another Winged Beast. We're going to summon out Simorgh, the Bird of Sovereignty, right here. It really doesn't make too much of a difference before MR5, so just summon it right there, because you're going to open the zone out with Union Carrier anyway. So with that in mind, we're going to proceed to link these two off and make our Union Carrier. The Union Carrier only requires a monster of the same types and or attributes. So if you have either of those, you're good to go. So we have 2 darks, and therefore we made Union Carrier. Union Carrier can target the Simorgh, Bird of Sovereignty. Your opponent can't target it, but you can. And you can attach it with a monster of the same attribute or same type. We're going to go with attributes, so we're going to summon, or not summon out, but rather equip a Mist Valley Thunderbird, boosting this attack by 1,000. Well, we're not done yet. We can go ahead and activate Lunalight Tiger now. And with Tiger, we're going to use the Tiger Scale Effect, and we're going to summon out our Emerald Bird. And we can further do something by linking these 2 off into an IP Masquerena. This gives us the option to basically stun out your opponent really for anything now, because now you can use IP Masquerena and the Union Carrier to make a Nightmare Unicorn against your opponent. We still have 3 cards in our hand, and now that we proceed to the end phase, now Simorgh, Bird of Sovereignty, summons a Wing Beast monster with a level equal to or lower than the empty zones, as long as your maximum fill on your side is 3 zones, and then your opponent will have 5 zones, so therefore you can summon out Mist Valley Apex Avian straight from the deck or straight from your hand. But if you start setting cards, then you would have misplayed, and therefore Bird of Sovereignty cannot summon out the Apex Avian. So you make sure that your maximum zones that you allow for yourself is 3 zones, and your opponent's zones counts as well. So that is a huge limitation. Just keep that in mind. That could be a severe misplay. If you want to boost up your Cyber Dragon Infinity and you're afraid of getting hit, you can go ahead and use the effect of Cyber Dragon Infinity to absorb it. And therefore you have level 1 negate, and then this is the second level of negation, and then you have 1 level of disruption. So that's kind of the overall gist of it. And while the Bird of Sovereignty is pointing to Apex Avian, and you want it pointing to Apex Avian, any of your Wing Beasts that this card points to cannot be targeted by card effects, which is a pretty big deal, and can prevent this card from being negated. So yeah, that's kind of the overall gist of it. And one of the best parts about these boards is it's not exactly super polyable. If you look at the 2 lights, both of which are machines, and therefore you can't go into a Mud Dragon. In terms of your Wing Beast monsters, both of them are Wind Wing Beasts. They cannot go into Mud Dragon either. It's like basically Mud Dragon proof, and you don't have enough darks for your opponent. The only thing that could be a takeaway is that they could go into a Cyber Dragon, and they'll take away the Union Carrier, the Infinity, and go into a Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, and that actually would sting a little, but you still have infinite negate based off of this, because anytime you bounce back the Mist Valley Thunderbird, you special summon it back onto the field, and you can just constantly loop the same card over and over and over and negate everything your opponent has. It's an Omni Negate, so it's the infinite negate with Apex Avian. Well, in the case that your Thunderbird gets banned or your Apex Avian gets banned, or the whole combo just doesn't work anymore, we can go back to Time Thief. So with the new Raid Raptor Y-Strix, this is what it's going to look like. This beginning part is more or less the same, starting off with the Kaleido Chick send for cost, activate Tiger effects on Martin, and Kaleido Chick overlay. Into 4-Strix, detach the yellow Martin, add the Singing Lanius to hand. So yeah, this part is still pretty quick. So special summon out the Singing Lanius, and with the 2 Dark Wing Beast, we are going to overlay, or rather link into Y-Strix. Y-Strix effect, we're going to special summon out Zephyros the Elite, and this Tiger has already burned its effect, so we're going to use Yellow Martin to bounce it back to our hand, special summon out the Yellow Martin, overlay the 2 into a second 4-Strix, and this part, if they think is going to be a problem with the Cyber Dragon Infinity, I think it's not a real big problem, because you're still paying half your life. Detach the Zephyros now with the second 4-Strix, and we're going to add Crack of Dawn, and Y-Strix will now trigger, setting the Soul Shade Force straight from the deck. Go ahead and activate it right now for simplicity's sake. Simplicity. And 4-Strix gets summoned. We get ourselves a Cyber Dragon Infinity. We lose about half our life doing so. Next, we activate the Lunalight Tiger once again. We're going to special summon out Kaleido Chick specifically, and we use Kaleido Chick's effect to send the Emerald Bird. This is a negated, so it doesn't copy the name, but it still sends for cost, and because of that, now we have access to an additional monster. And we have Zephyros. We're going to pay the life points of the Tiger to put it back, so now we're at 36. and we can special summon out Chris, Crack of Dawn. All these special summons do matter, and you'll see why, because I want to set up a full board of every type of negation possible, or rather interaction possible. Take these two. We want to go into now a Psyframe Lord Lambda using our Y Strix and our 4 Strix. From here, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. We can go ahead and just activate Lunalight Tiger effect. We're going to special summon out our Emerald Bird. And since we need a Psychic now, we're just going to take these two and we're going to convert it into a Redoer. We're going to detach, or we're going to activate Time Thief Redoer, and then when that happens, we're going to detach by effect the Emerald Bird. That will trigger the Emerald Bird because it's not detached for cost. Time Thief Redoer doesn't have a detach for cost, and then it will banish itself. This is going to trigger 2 cards. We're going to trigger our Lambda, and it's also going to trigger our Emerald Bird. Emerald Bird is going to special summon out another Lunalight monster, so we're going to special summon back our Kaleido Chick. And from here, we're going to overlay these two. Yeah, we're just going to do a bunch of overlay, and we're going to go into a Tornado Dragon. We're going to detach with the Tornado Dragon the Kaleido Chick and pop the Lunalight Tiger. With Tiger being popped, it's going to activate to special summon a monster, and we can go ahead and summon out any monster we want. We get the effect, I believe, when we special summon it, so we can go ahead and special summon out the Emerald Bird. If we have a Bricky card in our hand, we can go ahead and discard a card and draw one, but in this case, I'm just not going to do it. And now we're going to overlay these two for Time Thief Perpetua. Now we're going to use Perpetua's effect immediately, and we're going to attach a Bezel Ship onto Cyber Dragon Infinity, since we can basically hit up any of our cards and attach Time Thief card to it. So we can boost this one up to 25, so it's no longer just a 23 beat stick. It's pretty useful, and that's basically it. So during the end phase, add our Psyframe Gear Gamma from the Lord Lambda, and of course Redoer comes back and doesn't have to come back to those zones. That sets it up for a bigger play here. Then during the draw phase of your opponent, we're not done yet. Draw phase, of course we use Perpetua, we're going to attach Flyback to it, so now we have another level of disruption. You might be thinking, hey, you don't have enough space for Gamma. Well, when Redoer sends itself off, then we will be fine. And that's what I'm hoping for. When we use the effect of Redoer, it reattaches a monster. If we lose any of our monsters, it's still okay. I would like to have an IP Masquerena on the field as well. It's possible, in fact, if you want to give up the Cyber Dragon Infinity to do so. Yeah, you can definitely put an IP Masquerena onto the field, and that's up to you. Then you can use Gamma and use the Gamma with the driver as additional bodies for that. Anyways, that's the rundown of this combo. So what type of disruptions do we have? We have disruptions through monster effects and an Omni Negate through Cyber Dragon Infinity. We have Time Thief Redoer to remove a monster, very similar to Unicorn's effect, so that's why I don't have the IP Masquerena. And we have a Tornado Dragon to deal with stuff like Mystic Mind that's going to get tossed at us. So we have about 4 interactions here, 3 cards left in hand, and they can be extenders or additional utility to counter your opponent's plays. So that's kind of my full rundown on this particular play. I believe there's also an additional way of actually executing more if you have more extenders. If you have a Time Thief Winder in your hand, for instance, you get a special summon because you have an Xyz monster. That's all up to you, whether or not you figure it out yourself. I'm just giving you guys the initial tools for you guys to figure it out. Anyways, I think that's it for the combo here. And that's all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, learned a thing or two about Lunalights post dual overload, well, hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed the combo tutorial, step-by-step, kind of explaining what you're really trying to achieve through each step. Then, of course, hit subscribe, ding notification bell. I have a Crystron needle fiber right here. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Maybe I'll make another deck profile. I'm going to experiment with it to see how far I can go. I've been putting this in rockets just to kind of mess with it. But I'm definitely going to experiment a bit more and to see which deck is most viable with that particular card. Anyways, that's it. So in other words, I'll see you guys in the next one.